So welcome everybody to the Global Yoga Entrepreneurs, Experts and Enablers or GYEEE Talks. Here we share amazing life-changing stories of yogis and experts from yoga and Ayurveda and talk to them on what made them dedicate their lives to this practice of yoga. Today we have with us Alla. Alla was born in Ukraine. Starting her career as an accomplished international model, she traveled around the world for 10 years. She has been a yogi for 18 years now and found her calling to be a professional yoga teacher in 2018 and has been teaching now for 4 years. She's also a professional childhood educator. After a personal stint with severe health issues, she learned Ayurveda and yoga therapy in Kerala in 2019 and has been traveling around the world teaching at various resorts and yoga retreats since then. She's currently joining us from Israel, where she's visiting her family. Currently, she spends most of her time in India as she's left now Australia and has been teaching yoga and Ayurveda in Thailand, Maldives, Germany, and Sri Lanka. Welcome, Alla. Welcome to the talk.
Namaskar. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Alla. Namaste. So, Alla, we've been discussing about it, and for our listeners, could you just give us a background about yourself and how did your journey with yoga start?
Yeah, sure. So like you mentioned, I started to practice yoga 2004 when I was modeling. And the reason for me going into the yoga practice was because I suffered from scoliosis through my childhood, adulthood. Those people who don't know, it's the curvature of the spine. So it can leave you feeling very stiff. You get pain in your lower back, in your middle back, in your neck. So it's like an S-shaped spinal column. It's not straight. Yeah. So I had a lot of pain and yoga was a means of therapy for me. So it helped me to manage the symptoms of it, the painful symptoms and the stiffness. So I started practicing for those reasons, and I practiced all over the world when I was traveling, and that was great. So then when I was living in Australia, I was already teaching yoga, and that's when my health started to deteriorate. I didn't know at that time that was happening due to imbalances of doshas, and I didn't know that it was related to the lifestyle that I was living. But I got to the point where I couldn't go to work. I had to say no to money, to shifts, and I was just staying in bed, crying, wanting to die, just feeling miserable. I had so much pain in my body. I had migraines, headaches, digestive problems, depression because of the pain. So people who experience chronic pain, they know what I'm talking about. The depression happens because of that chronic pain and the futility of it, and then not knowing, is this ever gonna end? Am I ever gonna find solution? Am I ever gonna feel good again? So at that point, it just feels very futile and devastating, and it's just it was very confusing for me, because in my mind, I thought I was doing the right things. I'm practicing yoga. Why am I so stiff? Why is my body hurting? Why I have all these symptoms? It shouldn't be happening, right? So I ended up going to India. I lived with an Indian girl in Melbourne, and she told me about Ayurveda. And I started to implement some of the practices while I was still in Melbourne. Just little things I started to do to balance my vata. That's what was mainly out of balance. And I found out about the course in Kerala. So it gave me hope that I can find a way to heal myself with the change of diet and lifestyle and yogic practices. So I went to Kerala, I studied, I was applying what I learned there into my own life, and changed my diet. I changed my yoga practice, the attitude with which I was practicing asana, and I started to live a different kind of lifestyle because I was very chronically fatigued by that stage, and that's part of vata imbalance. So I was doing way too much for what my body could actually handle. So I was not treating my body well without realizing it. I was in a lot of ignorance at that time. So I started to apply this knowledge into my daily life. And at that time, that's when lockdown happened. I got stuck in India for 1.5 years, which ended up being a blessing in disguise, and gave me opportunity to apply these changes into my life and to anchor them. And then I went to Ayurvedic hospital and I did Panchakarma, I did the cleanse, and that's further improved my health. During all this time, there were opportunities for me to teach and to share my knowledge with others. So as I was healing myself, I was also helping other people with what I already learned, what I already knew how to do. And so now it's been 2.5 years since I left Australia, and since that journey began, where I applied Ayurveda and yoga as therapy, and now I am able to share this knowledge, share this wisdom with others, and help people who are like myself, who need this help, who want to improve their health and to be vital, to be energetic, to get rid of the symptoms that are actually the imbalances of the doshas in the body. And it's all possible. And I can definitely say that it's Ayurveda and yoga. This is the sciences. They come from Vedas. They are the eternal knowledge that we were given. So we can definitely apply it to live a life according to nature, according how we were designed, to nature's rhythms. So yeah, this is just a little bit about my journey, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story, Alla, and thanks a lot for sharing it. From somebody who was so bedridden, you were telling me you were almost bedridden for some time, and going from a career which was from an international model, which is like super hectic career, going to a bedridden stage, it must have been really heartbreaking. And I had a similar story, wherein I suffered from obesity for a long period of my time, and I can totally understand. Your body reflects on your mind, and what kind of state you go in. So thanks a lot for sharing. And before we go into the conversation ahead, you've been teaching around the world, and I know you've traveled a lot. What similarities do you see, or do you see any differences of how people are practicing yoga? What is their perception of yoga? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I'm seeing some similarities. So the most common thing is that there's a misconception. When I say yoga, to be quite honest with you, true yoga is not what most of the world is practicing nowadays. We call it yoga, and people associate, okay, I've come to a yoga class, I've done some movements, and then they say I've done yoga, but actually they just done exercises, they've done some asana. And I think the biggest commonality and misconception is confusing yoga with asana practice. So we need to differentiate that asana practice, when we do the postures, is the physical aspect of it. And even to do the asana practice, we can't say we're doing yoga, because your mind would be somewhere else. You may not be even breathing properly. You're just going through the motion. You might be thinking, what's for dinner tonight? So you're not even engaged. You might be so dissipated. So you might engage in it solely as the physical exercise. But it's just, you're making shapes with your body. Let's put it this way. You're making different poses and shapes with your body, just like you could do in the gym or in gymnastics or whatever. So that's not yoga really. And people sometimes get very caught up and carried away with confusing progress in yoga as doing advanced asanas. So something where you stand on your head, on your hands, doing some kind of flippy things where with your body, twisting it in these ways and thinking I've progressed. But that's actually ignorance. That's the ego is tricking you into it. So I used to think the same way because I just didn't have correct knowledge. And that's the common thing in especially the Western world, because when yoga was brought up to the West, it was advertised as way to be fit and lose weight and look good and have muscles and all of that, which is all fantastic. But we can't only focus on that part. Asana is just a small part that helps you to sit in meditation so that you can pursue the actual yoga, the spiritual part of it. Because if your body is stiff, it's aching, and just like I was sick and I couldn't even sit in meditation, I had to lie down because my body was in so much pain. I couldn't sit in cross-legged for a long period of time to even do the meditation. So the misconception is what actually yoga is, what are we practicing, and understanding that actually yoga is a spiritual. There's the physical part of it, of course, that helps us. Definitely, we have the physical body and we want to keep it fit. We want to feel good, and that's where yoga therapy comes in. So we want to experience the vitality, the energy. We want to be able to bend and not be in pain. So that's a valuable thing to have. But we can't stop there, and we also can't be carried away into believing that's all that it is. Then there's the next process, which is meditation, and which is the spiritual aspect of yoga, and understanding that yoga is actually the merging of their individual soul with the Supreme Being. And to do this practice, you have to dedicate to sitting in meditation, to doing the spiritual practices where the body is not an obstacle. So it's a very different practice. And I wish to spread the knowledge so that there is a very clear understanding what is what. So we know where we're at and what actually we're doing and why.
Right. And as you said, we also say when we are talking about our whole philosophy of food and yoga is not just your asanas that you're doing, it is mind, it is body, and it is also spirituality, and a lot. And I remember when we were discussing, people sometimes take yoga only as the asana and as the different twisting of the body. They forget that what they're consuming, where their mind is, whether you are having good thoughts, whether you're eating right food, that is also yoga. So I think it has been over-marketed in a certain way, and the other aspects, which are the non-glamorous, non-Instagram worthy aspects, they are sort of left out.
That is so true. And actually on Instagram or yoga class, you rarely would see, or if ever, somebody saying, okay, let's come to learn about philosophy now. Let's learn about yamas and niyamas and how to eat in a way that is conscious. It's not so common. You mostly see people doing headstands and
yes,
crow poses and unbalances to make everybody pay attention, right? So it's the less glamorous, like you say. It's so true.
Yes.
But it's the most important in the end. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Otherwise, you're only stuck with one aspect of yoga and you've not really got the entire benefit. So,
exactly.
Alla, you were talking about your own lifestyle struggles, with your battle with scoliosis and so many other issues that you had. What do you think, based on your learnings, how can a regular person who has a lifestyle issue, for example, and they don't know what to do with that, how can they start their practice with yoga? What would you advise them? What would be the step one? How would they start?
Yeah, so of course, they will have to assess where they're at and see what they need, because we can't look at yoga and Ayurveda as one size fits all approach. We have individual constitution. Our bodies are very different. We have very different needs. And so it's very important to understand what our needs are, what our doshas are. So say if you are Vata dominant, there is a way to practice asana that would benefit you the most. So for example, doing more steady grounding poses, practicing in a way that is slower, so that because Vata, it gets very dissipated, the mind goes everywhere. So the practice has to be focused on having more concentration. Where's my arm, where's my leg, and like staying in poses for longer time to be more grounded in them, as opposed to moving very quickly everywhere, right? So there's a way to practice that would benefit that type of person, as well as the breathing with pranayama, with meditation. The kind of practice they would do would be different. If someone is pitta dominant, The focus would then be on relaxation, especially the solar plexus area. That's the seat of Pitta. And Pitta is more, they're very high achievers, they're very driven, and they're always competitive. They want to prove themselves. I can do the hardest pose. Even if they're not there yet, they'll push their body, they'll force it. So the practice has to become a lot more slow and have breaks between each pose. So like you would do an asana, before you move to the next one, take a couple of breaths and just give yourself some time. So before going to the next thing, have a bit more relaxation, because again, they would move, go, and then they don't give themselves enough time to receive, to just be and not do. So the practice has to be focused more on that balance of masculine, feminine energy in the body, of doing and also relaxing. If someone is kapha dominant, they have to be more energized and uplifted.
They're the most chilled out people.
And they're the most chilled out. They're the ones you would not see that much in yoga class, in asana. I mean, they would be more bhakti oriented. They would be more into devotion. They want to sit and chant mantras, which is fantastic as well. But then they need to challenge themselves into movement to feel good. So they need asana actually to feel more energized and to have that strength. So they're the ones they needed the most, but they would be the least people to do it because of that motivation. They'd rather chill out. So they would benefit from rigorous practices. And, the ones that Pitta people like, Kapha actually benefits from it, but they're less likely to do it, as they need someone to push them. They need someone to give them, a bit of a kick, like do it. So they get motivated and inspired. But having a more energetic, those arm balances, and they are actually good for Kapha people if they can get there. Yeah.
So you mentioned about doshas. For people who are listening to us, they would have gone through all of these personality tests, but Ayurveda has found it out so early. Go check out the dosha quizzes. They are very easily available on Google. Just Google dosha quiz and answer some questions, and you'll get to know what your dosha is. And then there are other Ayurvedic and yogic practices along with it on how to balance your doshas.
Yeah, they can also see a Ayurvedic doctor and get a more thorough diagnosis if they have access to it. Take their pulse, and the doctor can definitely assess them. And definitely there's lots of quizzes available as well if someone can't get to the doctor. So there's ways to do it nowadays. It's not that hard.
Right. And Alla, we were talking about your venture. What is Alla Yoga Therapy, and what will people get when they enroll in it?
Yes, so Alla Yoga Therapy, so that's just me and my brand, and I offer different online services. For example, I've developed some programs. They already pre-recorded for a particular problem, an issue, a particular type of person, to help them. For example, I've got holistic office yoga program, and that's for people working in the office who sit by the desk. They might have stiffness in their lower back, in hips and neck and shoulders. They might have headaches because of this, and they live very stationary lifestyle. So the practices are already there. They can do at their desk, at their work. So it's 6-part series that they can do to help them relieve that. There is a program for women going through menopause and through this transition, and it helps them to connect with their physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects of themselves, and helps with this transition, so they can have something to help them now to meet their own needs. Like they might have had family as a priority, and now they can focus more on themselves and give more back towards themselves, and learn who they are on a deeper level, and the practices might help them to do that. There is also a program for women, career women or women entrepreneurs who are, like I described, the type of high achievers who are very career driven, and they might not have time to connect with their body. They might be spending a lot of time on their career and not enough time connecting to what the body needs, and they end up being very burnt out at the end of the day. So the program helps them to look after their digestion, which suffers as a result, helps them to look after the energy levels throughout the day so they don't end up burned out at the end, so they can do it as well. It's all 6-part series, and it's already been pre-recorded. And also I have online sessions. People can do Ayurveda yoga therapy with me, which is more individualized approach. If they have a specific issue, if they want to go deeper into the transformation, there is AYT Vitality System. So that's a more comprehensive program where someone wants to make real changes in their life and balance the doshas with the help of yoga and Ayurveda practices, with the change of their diet and lifestyle. I give recommendations for that. And the online classes. There's also meditations like yoga nidra and so on. So people can browse and they can have a look what resonates with them. And it's all designed for ways of transformation and of course to achieve the balance in the doshas as well.
Right. For those, I can personally vouch that Yoga Nidra has been so beneficial for me. I've been doing it for some time, and I can say that it has brought immense mental peace. And it is like that 20-30 minutes wherein you don't go to sleep, but you're recharged as if you've got like a 8-hour sleep. So if you've not tried Yoga Nidra yet, you should definitely check it out. I'll be putting in links to Alla Yoga Therapy in the comments, and you can check it out from there. Okay, Alla, so last questions. What is new happening with you in your life right now, and what is your motivation? What drives you to share yoga with the world?
Yeah, so the most exciting thing is I recently have been to Mumbai and I've been initiated into Vihangam Yoga, the meditation, which is there are 5 stages to the meditation. This is the spiritual aspect of yoga I've been talking about. It made me realize that until then, it's just been kindergarten. It's been like child's play. The practice has not even started until now. So I'm at the primary stage of this meditation and this practices. I'm associated with Vihangam Yoga and Abhya School of Yoga. So I'll be coming back to India after Israel and doing more work there. And what's exciting is being on this journey now. So being initiated and doing the practices of this meditation and sharing the experience that anybody who is listening and who is ready for the actual journey of yoga, and which is the meeting with your own soul and meeting with Almighty Supreme, what Vedas mention, the Bhagavad Gita mentions, Svarved mentions. So all these sacred texts talk about these practices that nobody really does. Well, I'm not saying nobody, but most of the people don't practice this. They only focus on the physical part. So if someone is ready for the real journey back home, where we've come from, and ready to ask themselves these questions: who am I? Where have I come from? What am I doing here? What's my purpose? And so forth. They probably will be curious about this as well. So I'm just really grateful and blessed that I was able to be there to be initiated, and so that's exciting for me to be on this journey. And I can't wait to go back to India. I can't wait to go back to Mumbai, do more work with Vihangam Yoga, with Abhya School of Yoga, and to share what I get to share, whatever needs to be shared, basically. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, sir. I think you have a very exciting time ahead of you, and you know I think the yoga journey is like, you know, it has layers. The more you open up, the more you know how much you don't know, right?
Oh my God, so true. It's so true.
You're
Yes.
saying that you completed it and then you see like
Yeah.
there's a long way to go again. But yeah, it's
You're
a
not
journey.
even close.
Yes, well, it's
It's
a
a
journey.
journey. Yeah.